And welcome to another Cardinals Nest here on HBC Channel 25, the sports show devoted exclusively to St. Mary's University athletics. Dean Beckman along with Sports Information Director Donny Nadeau back here, our post-Thanksgiving show, Donny, and it's good to be back here on HBC. And now we kind of start that really busy, heavy swing up to the Christmas season, and all of the sports teams, the winter sports teams now in full force, in action, a lot of them starting conference play. Coming up later, we'll talk about some of the recent events in St. Mary's athletics. And then also later on in the program, in our interview segment, we'll be featuring women's basketball with Mandy Pearson, the head coach, and one of her sophomore players, Courtney Euerle.
Yeah, you talk about jam-packed, and you look at the two basketball teams, and right now is really, they make a big push here where they've got a ton of games in a short amount of time. And, you know, we'll talk to Mandy a little bit about, you know, the fact that you look at their schedule right now, they've got a game on Wednesday, they play Saturday, they play Monday, they play Wednesday, they play Saturday. So it's a very busy time for them. They get a lot of games in really a short amount of time, and then they go on a big long break for the Christmas holidays. So you know, it'd be interesting to kind of pick her brain a little bit about how they prepare the team in terms of, you know, you're doing a lot of traveling, maybe going places that you know, you don't want to. They have their long trip up to Concordia. So there's a lot that goes into this preparation for this short amount of time that they play a lot of games. So we'll pick her brain a little bit on that and talk a little bit about our expectations.
Yeah, and speaking of traveling, later we'll touch on with the men's team. They're doing a lot of far traveling early, as they have to go to Collegeville one night and then 2 nights later turn right around and go to Concordia.
Yeah, it's a busy time, and those are trips that you know, both teams have to make, and it's just you know, for them it's unfortunate that they've got to do it in 1 week. They're going to both places.
Yeah. So all right, we'll touch on that a little bit later, but first the past couple of weeks here in Cardinals athletics, and we'll begin, Donny, with men's hockey action. No surprise, they're taking on another ranked opponent when last we visited in Milwaukee School of Engineering. And the first contest, this was at the St. Mary's Ice Arena. It was a very impressive 2-1 win for the Cardinals hockey team, their first win of the season, and it comes against the 8th ranked team in the country.
Yeah, and I think that it's a big win for them in a number of ways. One, obviously, like you said, it was their first win of the season, so they broke their 6-game losing streak. But for it to come against a nationally ranked team, it adds to that win. You add to that it was an overtime game, very exciting game, very well played game. But I think if you look at Coach Moore, I think what he's going to unfortunately talk about is the fact that they weren't able to come around that second day and put together the same type of effort. They did lose 6-0 the second afternoon when they played MSOE, and so I think if you talk to Coach Moore, he's going to say, if you would have told me before this series that we'd split against the 8th ranked team in the country, he'd be very happy with that. But I think if you go behind that and say, yeah, but would you have been happy with a 6-0 loss, he would say, you know, absolutely not. So great that they got that first victory, an outstanding performance. And I think what it does is it kind of shows that, you know what, they can play with the best teams in the country when they're playing at the top of their game, and that's the game that certainly proves that. You know, you take on the 8th ranked team in the country, a team that split with the 2nd ranked team in the country the week before. So you know, it's a very talented MSOE team, and for them to win that game, it proves that they can play with the top teams in the conference. And so what they need to do now is they need to be able to turn around and play that well on a second day. Now give them, you know, you got to give them credit that second day, you've got a short turnaround. You're playing less than 12 hours later. You're playing again against a very talented team, and you've got the emotions of that victory. Not only their first win, but also the overtime victory. So there was a lot of emotions that probably came into play the second day, just in terms of, you know, they had a little bit of an emotional letdown, and you can't have that against a team like MSOE. They're just too good.
Right. Well, and I have to say, I broadcast that second game here on HBC. I was leery going into that game because of that emotional letdown, and you know, the 8th ranked team in the country, they had to get an earful from their head coach, and I'm sure they came out with a renewed sense of purpose in that second game.
Absolutely. And to add to that, like we said, to add to that it was you played 7:30 the night before, and then you turn around and you play at 2:30 the next afternoon. That's tough. You know, and granted, both teams have to do it, so it's hard to use that as an excuse, but I think you're right. I think that the momentum really was on MSOE's side, because they were, you know, I'm sure they got an earful from their coach, and we were coming off that emotional victory. So I think that, you know, it's not an excuse, but I'm sure that weighed into the outcome, maybe the lopsidedness of it.
Let's focus on that 2-1 win because Austin Belko got things started. His third goal of the season. He's really playing well. When I have seen the men's team play, he is always around the puck.
Well, you know, he was on the all-freshman team last year as a freshman, and so it's no surprise that he's able to put the puck in the net. But you're right. I mean, he's been kind of the spark plug for him right now, and he's playing on a line with Nick Gorup and Nick Nagel, and they're doing an outstanding job. And Coach Moore needs that from him. I mean, he's looking for Austin to score goals, and Austin's coming through for him. I think, you know, Coach Moore and I kind of go round and round when we talk about who's getting the scoring for them, because really, when you look at the way they're playing right now, almost half of their goals right now are coming from defensemen. You know, to me, that's a good thing. It means that, you know, we're getting the puck to the points, and they're getting it on net, and it's, you know, the forwards are doing their jobs in terms of creating screens and you know, traffic in front of the net, and the puck's going in. I guess to me it doesn't matter who scores it, as long as it goes in the back of the net. That's what you want. And so, you know, Austin's doing a good job up front, but I think defensively they're creating a lot. The defensemen are creating a lot of good offensive opportunities and cashing in on them, and that's a very big positive, and that's got to continue. I think on the defensive end, everybody's playing well. You look at that game, like you said, you look at that 2-1 game. You hold a team like MSOE to 1 goal in almost 65 minutes of play. That's an outstanding performance, not only from the defensemen, but from your forwards, and obviously Andy Scheib did a great job in goal as well. So it was certainly a total team effort in that 2-1 victory.
Yeah, and then of course the game winner, Austin got the first goal, and then MSOE tied it up with about 3 minutes to go in that third period. Goes into overtime, and then it was Andrew Ketterer who set up Bob Marks for the game winner.
Yeah, and what a great shot. You know, it's what we talked about. Bob's a freshman defenseman, and he got the puck from Andrew sliding across, and he really just took a slap shot and let it rip, got it on goal. I'm sure that Connor Tomey didn't see it at all, and went in the back of the net. And you could see the emotion of the team when they got that first victory, because the first one's always important. You know, and it was nice that they finally got that win, because they played a great game. It really would have been heartbreaking for them not to get a win after losing the game before that when they played Hamlin and lost in overtime. So they were on the losing end of an overtime heartbreaker. It was nice to see them be on the other side of that and get a W for their efforts.
And then as far as the St. Mary's women's hockey team is concerned, they had a doubleheader with St. Kate's this past weekend, and on Friday night they skate to a 2-2 tie.
Yeah, ties have been kind of commonplace with the women right now. That's that's basically that's their third tie of the season. They've played 8 games, 3 of them have ended up in ties. So I guess you can take that for whatever it's worth. But you know, we talked to Coach Manor the week before that, and you know, he made mention of, you know what, that's 3 points. You know, you take a tie and a win, and you get 3 points. Unfortunately, this time they started out with that tie for the 1 point, but then weren't able to follow that up the second day as they lost 3-1 to the Wildcats. So, you know, I think that offense has got to pick up. They've got to score more goals. You know, they get 2 on Friday night, and then they scored just 1 on Saturday. So they need to get some more goals. They need to get some more offense. You know, certainly nothing to hit the panic button about being 1-1 and 2 in conference play. So they're right in the middle of the conference mix there, and they've got a big weekend series against St. Olaf this weekend. So, you know, this is it for them for first semester this weekend. So. Coach Manor's looking for some big things to carry over into the break as they head into the Christmas break and then into next year.
And they're home Friday night, away Saturday night, men vice versa with St. Olaf, correct? And the other thing, as I was reading the game stories with that doubleheader with St. Kate's, again, it just seems like consistency seems to be plaguing the team, and that's what Coach Manor kept referring to.
Absolutely. They need to be consistent from period to period, really from shift to shift is when I talked to Coach Manor after Saturday's game. It's, you know, it's not even period to period, it's shift to shift. They need to be at the top of their game, and, you know, I'm sure we can talk to Coach Pearson when she gets on. It's going to be the same thing. You need to be at the top of your game for the whole game. It can't run in spurts, because these teams that you're playing are too talented and too good to give them, you know, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, where you're not at the top of your game, and they are, and that's really what happened on Saturday. Is they played very good for almost the whole first period. They played okay for the second, and then didn't play quite so well, you know, in the third. So it's one of those things that they need to be consistent, and they need to continue to get better. It was nice to see Haley Coolset get a couple of goals in the 2-2 tie. She scored both goals, and so, they're getting the goal scoring from the people they need to. They just need to be consistent in terms of how they're playing, not necessarily who's scoring, but in how they're playing each period.
Okay. So, shifting focus now to swimming and diving. It was a dual meet at McAllister, a couple of days long, and it was the usual suspects for the Cardinals in Liz Flynn and Mark Ross.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Liz Flynn and Mark Ross every time we talk about swimming and diving. On the guys' side, Mark had 3 first-place finishes and a handful of seconds in the dual meet against McAllister, and then the next day in the McAllister Invitational. So, obviously he's primed and ready for a really great junior season. And then Liz Flynn has just been dominating on the 3-meter and the 1-meter. She broke the school record in the 3-meter, which was, Coach Lindquist was very, very happy with. I know I talked to him after that meet, and he was pretty pumped about that. And it was interesting, I talked to him this morning, and it's like Liz is still, even as a senior, she's still adding dives to her repertoire, which is just going to make that score even better. So I would not be surprised to see Liz break that school record in the 3-meter at least one more time, just because she's changing things up. Her dives are becoming more difficult. The degree of difficulty is becoming higher, which is going to make that score even higher. So yeah. I would not be surprised to see that record broken again. And on the women's side, a couple of names that we don't always hear a lot about did well. Anna Smarin, she had a 3rd-place finish, and then Linda Tierney, a 4th place, as the Cardinals women finished 6th in that invitation. Yeah, both of them are you're gonna hear those names a lot. It's just right now what they need to do is get those times a little bit lower. Linda had a very good performance in the dual meet the night before, where she finished 2nd in a couple of events, and same with Anna. She's going to be solid, and she's going to get a lot of attention. Right now, it's just that the day 2 times were probably a little bit slower. Some of the teams that they were competing against, St. Thomas being one of them, one of the top teams in the MIAC in swimming. So the 2nd place finishes maybe weren't as high as you would have hoped, but the times were certainly very good. Well, and speaking of St. Thomas, they have their invitational this upcoming weekend. Yeah, and again, it's a 2-day, Friday, Saturday, and Coach Lindquist is trying to get more of that, because as we've talked before, when they get to the MIAC in February, it's going to be a 3-day event. So anytime they can compete on a Friday and a Saturday, it's just good preparation as they head into getting ready for the conference championships. And the nice thing, I talked to Coach Lindquist, I gave him a little bit of a hard time. The divers the women divers actually compete next week at St. Catherine, and then after that they're off until they head to the Bahamas for a week-long training trip. So they're going to have a nice, enjoyable training in the Bahamas when they get back from Christmas break. Okay, all right. So we'll talk more about that in the coming weeks here. Finally, in this segment, Donnie, men's basketball, they weren't quite in the Bahamas, though they were farther south. They were down in Dallas, Texas, before Thanksgiving break, and then right after Thanksgiving they came up north in the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh tournament, and there we see the Oshkosh results. Before that, though, down in Dallas, they lost to the University of Dallas 75-71 and to Austin College 67-52. Yeah, and in all 4 games that they've played so far, you talk to Coach Landrum, and it's not that they're playing poorly. They're actually playing pretty well, and it's it's a spurt here and it's a spurt there, kind of like I was talking with the shifts in hockey, and all 4 of those teams went on a little bit of a run. You look at the Eau Claire game. Eau Claire used a 12-0 run to kind of pull away a little bit, but yet the Cardinals were right there. They were with them the whole way, and really right now leading the way for the Cardinal men is Michael Burfind. He had 19 points against Dallas in their very first game. That was a career high. Since then, he scored 24 against Oshkosh, and he scored 21 against Eau Claire. 2 very, very good teams from the WIAC. So very, very solid competition, and Michael's in putting up some very, very impressive numbers. And that's, they're going to need that. There's going to be no secret that Michael's going to need to be a force underneath if the Cardinals are going to be successful, and so far that's proving to be right. Is that he's going to score points, and he's going to score a lot of points. He's got he's got a good supporting cast around him. Evan Peterson, a freshman from Alaska, is doing an outstanding job as the point guard. He's distributing the ball very well, and Coach Landrum says that this is a team that's very good about giving the ball up. They're very good about a very good passing team, and Evan's doing a great job of distributing the basketball to who's open and who needs to get it. Evan had 7 assists both against Oshkosh and against UW Eau Claire, so he's distributing the ball well against Oshkosh. 5 guys in double figures, first time since 2009 that's happened. So outstanding job of getting the offense spread out, and I think that Evan really kind of kind of spearheads that. He gets that going. He's getting the ball where it needs to be. And I think one of the things that Coach Landrum was very proud of in the Oshkosh game was 3 turnovers. As a team, they only had 3 turnovers. It's been a long time since they've only had 3 turnovers, and they did it against Augsburg a couple years ago. But they're taking care of the basketball, and so I wouldn't be surprised. The time is it's going to be very close here, and they're going to start putting some wins together.
Right.
There's a lot of young players on this team, and it's going to take time for that to gel. And I think that the more games that they play together and continue to work as a unit, that's going to happen.
Well,
and I think those trips, didn't mean to interrupt you, I think those trips are important. The trip to Dallas, good cohesiveness, good chance to build some team chemistry, and then when you head to Oshkosh for 2 straight days, it's the same kind of thing. It gives you some time that you're just together as a basketball family, and you kind of get to know each other, not only on the court but off the court, because that's all you have is that group, and that's going to help them out down the road.
Yeah, and certainly Todd talked about that on this program a couple of weeks ago. One of the things he was looking forward to about those trips, and they are certainly picking up where they left off at the free throw line. One of the top Division III free throw shooters in the country last year. In fact, at all levels, one of the top free throw shootings team, and now they're at almost 82% this year at 814, and their opponents shooting less than 70%.
Yeah, Coach Landrum takes pride in that, in getting to the line, and he says that all the time, that they're a very good free throw shooting team. Last year they were the top team in the nation in Division III. And they're right there again this year, and he takes pride in the fact that they're going to get to the line. And when they get to the line, that's their game plan, is to get to the line. They've got to be able to make those free throws, and that's what they're doing right now.
Burfine, 27 of 31 at the line, not too bad.
Amazing.
All right, stay tuned here to the Cardinals Nest. When we come back, we'll talk women's basketball with Mandy Pearson and Courtney Euerle. That's next here on HBC.
The Rose, Fiesta, Sugar, Orange, and the 2012 All-State BCS National Championship game. ESPN, the BCS lives here.
And welcome back to the Cardinals Nest here on HBC as we welcome in Mandy Pearson and Courtney Euerle. Mandy, the head women's basketball coach for the Cardinals. Courtney, a sophomore post player for the Cardinals. Thanks for being on the program today. And Mandy, I was looking things over. You're in your 5th year already.
I am.
You must be having fun because time has flown by, I'll tell you that. Talk about those 5 years and how you have grown as a coach for the Cardinals women's team.
You're starting me off with a nice tough
hard
question here.
question.
It's been a really good experience. I think this has been my first head coaching job, every single year you learn something. And I think I'm going to quote Don Meyer because he's one of the greatest basketball coaches in the country. It says constantly that as a coach you have to learn more every single year, daily, all the time. And I think that's just what I've try to continue to do on a daily basis. I think I need to talk to Coach Landrum a little bit, how he gets his team to only turn the ball over 3 times. So that'll be my next step, I guess. Yeah. But it's been a great experience. St. Mary's is an awesome place, and we're continuing to get some really good people in our program.
Yeah, that book by Buster Olney about Don Meyer, by the way, just a fantastic book. I don't know if you've had a chance to read it, but Courtney, now you're nervous because I started off Mandy with a difficult question. But we'll ask you an easy question. Yep. Just kind of tell us about yourself. You're a sophomore, so tell us where you came from, how you ended up getting recruited to St. Mary's, and what you're majoring in.
Well, I'm from Litchfield, Minnesota. So it's about 3.5 hours from here, and I got interested in St. Mary's first by the flyers and stuff they send out, and then started talking with Coach here, and then I understood that I like the stuff St. Mary's has to offer, and so I decided to come here, and I'm majoring in sports management and marketing.
Okay. All right, great.
Now, Courtney, talk a little bit about the difference between last year as a freshman and this year in terms of your expectations and maybe Mandy's expectations on you.
Well, the expectations are obviously higher this year because I've already had a year under my belt and stuff. Last year I was just trying to get into the flow of the system and everything, and I pretty much have a well understanding on that, and so I expect to be more of a leader towards the younger kids since we have quite a few freshmen. to help them learn the system and understand it.
And Coach, that obviously is going to be the next question. You lost quite a bit last year to graduation.
Yeah.
You've got a number of new people on the roster. We were just kind of going over the roster off camera. There are so many different names. Talk a little bit about this, because this year's a little bit different in that you do have a lot of new people, a lot of turnover. Talk about how the early part of the season has gone in terms of just adjusting to a new roster.
It's gone really well. I mean, obviously, we do miss Kim and Sherry and Jess because their leadership was unbelievable. But we're very fortunate having a younger roster, that we have a very mature group who they just love the game, love to put in the time, and they work really hard. So that transition has been better than I thought it would be. You know, I thought it'd go pretty well, but it's gone really well. They're just very mature people who catch on to things well and put the time in, and our freshmen are doing a very good job, and our sophomores, juniors, and seniors are doing a nice job of helping them along the way.
It's kind of hard to believe it's November 30th, and you've only had one game.
Yeah.
You know, so you've had a lot of practice and a lot of preparation time. You've got your conference opener Wednesday night, the day we're taping here. Talk a little bit about what your expectations are heading into the conference. What do you want to see? You know, usually the first couple games are kind of a measuring stick, but you've got to get right into conference play. So does that change how you kind of approach this early part?
A little bit, I mean, but not really. I mean, we were kind of fortunate to have a lot of practices early on, because we needed our freshmen to, you know, go up a level of play from high school, and which has worked out really well. In terms of starting tonight, I think it's going to go pretty well. We have a good schedule that's going to be competitive, but very, very winnable games as we get into our conference play, and I think our level of play is at the point we need it to be to get ready to go here.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about that first game against Elmhurst College. Mandy, in a way, your team played very well. I'm sure there's some disappointment, though, as you had that big halftime lead and couldn't continue that in the second half. Just talk about that game, how it progressed, and your thoughts coming out of it.
We played very well. We really did. We saw a lot of good things. We had some people being aggressive. When you were talking about Coach Landrum's team shooting the ball well and not turning the ball over, that was the opposite problem that we had in that game against Elmhurst. We had, I think, 28 turnovers and shot poorly from the free throw line, which isn't like our team. And so those are the two main factors of why that second half didn't go as well. But we put ourselves in the position that we needed to win that game, but we made some costly mistakes, some costly turnovers that, you know, like you're talking about, basketball's a game of runs. And our job is to limit those runs throughout the game and to go on a few ourselves. And we did that in the first half, but in the second half we didn't do a good enough job of containing their runs and finishing out the game, but they played well. We saw some great things. We shot the ball well, played pretty good defense. It's just a few little tiny mistakes that didn't help the game end in our favor.
I was talking to one of your senior leaders, Emily DeWitt, and she says, we should have won that game.
Yeah,
she was very disappointed, and I think that to me was reflective of a great attitude, that she knew that there was a game maybe that you'd like to have back, and some disappointment coming out of that. Courtney, if you could talk about the team's thoughts coming out of that game.
Yeah, we were disappointed. I mean, coming out of the half, we were ahead by 12, and then, like, next thing we know, we were tied. So then it was like, we were like, oh my gosh, we like tried to step it up, and then in the end, like she said, we had turnovers in our free throws, like our 1-and-1s. We were missing the first one, so those points could have easily been a big swing around. So that was disappointing in it.
You know, you look at a young team, and sometimes those runs are almost magnified because it's kind of a learning experience, because it probably is, like you said, it's that step up from high school, and you know, all of a sudden, a 4-0 run is a 12-0 run. And as the coach, as a player, how do you kind of keep your younger players calm and kind of get them to understand that every possession is important?
You just talk about it. Practice certain game situations. We do a lot of game situations at practice to try and help them focus and get used to different things. For the most part, we did a pretty good job. You know, I think the run happened when they had a guard that took a few charges in the second half, which was energy for them. And then they had a post player who was pretty dang good. And Courtney Euerle did a good job of holding her 5 points below her average. But she still, you know, help side went away, and she made a couple big plays at the end. And you just keep working with your younger players and teaching them how to handle those things, call timeouts. You just talk about it. They're learning at a very good pace that I'm happy with.
Yeah. And Courtney, you got a little extra playing time last year when Jamie Steffley went down with an injury, though I'm sure you're both ecstatic to have Jamie back again this year, healthy and ready to go and playing well.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I love playing with Jamie. Like, it's so, she knows the sport so well, and I know that, like, we get along, so, like, I know where she's going to be if I'm doing a certain thing. Like, we just kind of click, so having her back helps a lot on the court.
Yeah, as a coach, obviously it has to help a lot. I mean, she had 11 rebounds just in your game against Elmer. She was having a great year last year. Health-wise, is she completely healthy and ready to go?
Yeah, she's good. She just needs to learn how to trust the strength in her leg is basically the number one thing, and that has improved a ton since we've started practice. She's getting a little bit more comfortable, pushing off and doing all those things, and she's just going to continue to get better with that. I mean, she grabbed, 10 or 11 rebounds? Yeah. She's got the long arms and a nose for where the ball's going, and it helped that Courtney here was boxing 32 out like her life depended on it. Held her to, she didn't have very many offensive rebounds that game. So, I mean, those two things combined, they make a very good duo underneath the basket. And Courtney's very versatile, so she can go in, out, and do some different things for us, which will allow us to play those two together and, you know, put Courtney at the 5 and the 4 position, which will help us a lot.
And then offensively, Jess Thone, I guess, kind of assumed, but, you know, she had 19 points. You kind of look for her to be the offensive leader. Adri Stevens, in her first game, had 10 points. Talk offensively, because you did lose a lot. Like you said, when you lose Jess and Sherry, they were your top 2 scorers last year. It seems like Jess kind of slid right into that number 1 role, but you're going to be looking for some other people to really step up their offensive game.
I think you can expect the leading scorer to change every single day. You know, Jess Thone attacks the basket well and shoots well from the outside, but she's also a very good passer. So some games she'll look to score more, other games she's going to distribute the ball really well. So I really think that that's going to change constantly. We have a lot of players on our team who can hit outside shots, some players who can get to the basket, we can score inside. So I think we're just better all around from that standpoint than we were in years previous, which is kind of nice.
And Coach, just 30 seconds left here. If you could kind of preview the conference season for us. Who are the teams in the conference that are expected to be at or near the top again?
Right now, I think it's, I don't know. You know, I mean, St. Thomas should be up there again this year. They brought in a pretty good recruiting class, and I think they only graduated 2 players. But similar top teams, but I really think that 4, 5, and 6 spot, those spots in our conference are going to change, and some teams are really going to make a run for the top 3.
Okay, great. And this Saturday, it's St. Olaf, and that'll be right here on HBC. It's a 1 o'clock start, and then also it's a doubleheader, 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock, women and men. So. Yeah. All right, good luck this weekend. Thanks for being on the program.
Thanks for having us on.
All right, that's going to do it for the Cardinals Nest. Thanks for watching here on HBC.